without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. Everyone remembers Callie Blackwell. She needs very little introduction in our circle, so she's going to come up and give you a talk, and we hope you enjoy. Thank you very much. I'm going to key my mic.
Hi everybody. Okay, firstly, I just want to apologise. I'm going to have to use notes and things because I've been living in a field for the last 7 weeks, like literally living in a field in a tent, like all you guys are right now. This has been my life for 7 weeks. And quickly, because the last time I was here at the Spring Festival, Tag managed to talk us into moving here, so we went back to Georgia and we sold everything, and within 4 weeks we were back here with everything in a U-Haul. So I'm one of you guys now, and you've officially adopted an English person into your community. So I just, so it's been a little bit hectic, and I was asked to talk at this event. I was asked to talk now at the end of the last one, and I was like, yeah, sure, I've got ages. And then I've just made these notes in the truck on the way here because life has just been mental. So, but I'm going to do my best to try and teach you some of the information that I have inside of me and my brain box that I've been collecting for the last 15 years. In the hope that it will help any of you with anything that you've got going on in your lives. So it's called, my thing today is called Empowering You to Save Yourself with God's Gifts. Can anybody guess what is the best of God's gifts? Can someone tell me? Go, Julie. The one you need at the time. That's a really good answer. I wasn't prepared for that. It's actually you. You are the greatest of God's gifts, and God has given you a body that is programmed and designed to heal itself, providing you give it what it needs and you don't give it what it doesn't need. And that's the most imperative thing, is we are a self-healing machine, that we are wholly designed very uniquely in perfection, and we can heal ourselves, but we have to give ourselves what we need. And unfortunately, in today's world, we are surrounded by things that we do not need, and they are vastly encouraged. When we look in the supermarkets, when I first came to this country, it absolutely blew my mind. Some of the foods that were on the shelves in the supermarkets here, and we're poisoned enough in the UK, but it's crazy here. So we have to avoid all these things, and they are socially acceptable and encouraged. And so we have to really think about what we're doing to not fall into that trap of poisoning ourselves while we're trying to heal ourselves at the same time. So to achieve optimum health, we have to stop putting the toxins in. That's the most important thing. And we have to get the toxins that are in there, we've got to get them out. Because if we heal with one hand and we harm ourselves with the other hand, we're literally going to go around in circles. We're going to maintain our current situation at best. And so if we want to get optimal health and we want to actually proceed with our lives, then we need to make sure that we get that balance correct. So we have the ability to control a lot of things, and we don't have the ability to control other things. Like, we can't stop them spraying in the skies. We know what they're doing. We can't stop it. We can make the choice about what we put in our bodies. We can make the choice about the water we drink and the food we eat and the people we have around us, because that's also really important. So there's something that when my son was really, really sick, and I went through, there was a lot of things that I couldn't control. And one of the things that kind of really stuck out to me was the serenity prayer, which is, God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. And that really helped me go on with my life and not lose my mind while my son was going through cancer treatment. And I think it's something incredibly empowering for a lot of us, because we can all get sucked into these things that are going on that we can't change. Well, there's lots of things we can, and that's kind of what I'm here to talk about today. So if we can get the 4 foundational building blocks of life solid, then we are going to do really well in anything else that we add on, like supplementation or, cannabis. Obviously, I'm a huge proponent for that. But that can only do so much, So we have to make sure that we get the 4 foundational building blocks of life solid, and then everything we put on top of that is going to work much, much better. And so I think we all can agree that prevention is far better than a cure. It's much better to not get sick in the first place and wait until you're sick and then try and reverse that, because that's much more difficult. So, one of the first foundational building blocks of life that I like to talk about is our breath. And this is a gift that God has given us. It's free. We get to do it all day, every day, lots and lots of times. But how many of us are breathing as we should be for the optimum health that we can achieve? So I'd really like you all at the moment to like just hone in on yourselves and become aware of how you're breathing. How are you breathing? How are you breathing? I'm pointing at you. Yeah. Light and shallow. Okay. And what about you? Yeah. Yeah. Lots of people breathe light and shallow. We all kind of breathe like that because we just get into it and we're not really thinking about what we're doing. Now, our breath is actually the remote control to our brain. And so when you're breathing light and shallow, you're actually telling your brain that you're in danger because you're effectively panting. And so that's telling your brain, oh, there's a risk, there's something going on here. You need to make sure that you are safe, and you need to, then it kicks on your sympathetic nervous system, your parasympathetic nervous system. No, it is your sympathetic nervous system. Where's the doctor? He's going to pick me up. It kicks on your fight or flight. And so when your body goes into fight or flight, what happens is you release chemicals and hormones like adrenaline and cortisol, which are not good for you long term. We all need those if there is actually imminent danger. But when there's not imminent danger and it's just your breath that's making you think there is, then you get put in that state of fight or flight, and nobody can heal in fight or flight. You have to be in rest, digest, and repair in order for you to be able to heal. So you're not physically healing anything while you're in that fight or flight. I'm doing it too. I can hear myself not breathing properly. So with the remote control to the brain, we can adjust how we're feeling, and we can adjust the way that our bodies react just with our breath work, by becoming conscious of our breath and taking big, deep belly breaths. And so regulation, what happens is we can also regulate our breaths. Like if we need to be a little bit more have all that going, we can regulate that by holding our breath at the top. That will raise your heart rate, that will raise everything. And then if we hold our breath at the bottom of the exhale, it'll actually slow our heart rate down. So if you find yourself in a position of stress, or you find yourself like getting worked up, it's a really, really good idea to take a big, deep belly breath into your belly. A lot of us breathe into our chest as well. We forget about this. And actually, this should get filled up first, because this then pushes the diaphragm out, which then gives the space more for lungs, and then you get actually more breath in. So, and also, this is something else that's really interesting, is 70% of toxins in your body will be released in your breath, providing you're breathing properly and as effectively as you can. So if you really want to get the toxins out, breath work is one of the most amazing things you can do, and it's free. So belly breathing, basically what we're going to do, and I'd really love you to all kind of do it with me, and I need to do it too because I'm incredibly stressed. I was just doing my notes in the car and getting here, so I need to do this too, and hopefully it will calm us all down. So basically what we need to do is we are going to breathe into our belly for the count of 6 in through our nose, and you always breathe in through your nose. That's kind of, it's a thinner thing, It's also where the filter is. We don't have filters in our throat, we have the filters in our nose, so it's really important that we nose breathe. So we're going to breathe in for 6 in through our noses, bellies first, then our lungs, and then immediately afterwards we will breathe out for at least 8 seconds through pursed lips. So it's like you're kissing someone, because then that slows everything down. That means everything has to come out like a lot slower. And then we're going to hold the breath at the bottom for 4 seconds. And then you would repeat that 6 times. I'm not going to make you repeat it 6 times now. But as far as if you have anxiety or anything like that, you find yourself in a stressful situation, this is definitely something you can do in the future. So I'm going to do it now because I need to. So if you want to do it with me, you're more than welcome. Okay, so we're going to breathe in for 6. You ready? And again. Okay, I'm going to leave that there because otherwise I'll do it more and then I'll fall asleep. So that's another good one, actually. If you struggle to fall asleep, I couldn't even breathe in for 6 then, as you can see. But that's another thing. If you do struggle with sleep, then doing that before you go to bed is a really good way to like get you into that rest, relaxation. You are literally switching from the fight and flight nervous system to rest, digest, and repair. So you're telling your brain, well, I'm safe, you can relax, you can go to sleep, it's not a problem. And so it absolutely brings everything down. So that's breath. The next thing I want to talk about that God gave you, that we're all capable of doing here, regardless of our capabilities, we are all capable of doing this to some extent, and that's movement. And movement's really, really important. And it's not just important because, we need to keep moving so that our muscles don't waste and so we become strong, so we can carry on with our lives. Movement is actually really, really important because of our lymphatic system. And the lymphatic system is, it's our sewage system, basically. It's the thing within our body. It's everywhere. It's our entire body. We actually have more lymphatic fluid than we do blood. And our lymphatic system is our sewage system, and it's how we get the toxins out. It's like if you imagine your entire body, it's like the streams and the rivers that flow within your body that carry those toxins that are taken out of your cells, and then it comes out of your body through urination, through sweating, through breath. And so it's really, really important that we keep that lymphatic system moving. Now, I have an analogy that I use with my cancer patients, and I'll I'll tell you, I'm gonna use the word bins, okay, but I mean trash cans, okay, but I'm gonna say bins because it's easier for me. So if you imagine our bodies are like an office block, and in every office block we have loads and loads of floors, and by all these floors there's little desks and everybody's working at their desk, and by each desk is a little waste paper bin, little trash can, and then on every floor you have a bigger bin where all those little bins get emptied into the bigger bin, and then outside the office block you have a bunch of industrial bins, the really big ones. So our bodies are made up like that. We have hundreds and hundreds of very small waste paper bins throughout our body, and then they all get emptied out into the bigger ones, which we have less of, but we still have a lot of them. And then the industrial bins, we have our tonsils, behind which we can access behind our ears, and then we have our armpits, we have a main one here, and then we have our groin, and then behind our knees. Now they're the big industrial bins that are outside the offices. So if you can imagine, all the little waste paper bins get filled up, they go into the next one, they go into the next one. Now what happens a lot of the time is these big industrial bins, they get full up, and then they start spilling out because the bin men aren't coming regularly enough. So what happens when the bin men don't come regularly enough is, you've now got cancer and they're taking out your lymph nodes. So they've taken away the industrial bins, but they didn't bring the bin back. So now instead of just bringing the bin men in more regularly, they take the bins away. It's the worst thing you can do is have lymph nodes removed. Like, it's one of the worst things you can do. And I always say to people, like, I understand, if you have a mastectomy or something like that, but please try and keep your lymph nodes. Empty them. Don't remove them. Because, if you can imagine, we take away the big industrial bins and we don't replace them, the waste is still coming. And actually the waste is coming even more because now you've had chemotherapy, which is just completely, that's incredibly toxic. So now we've got all this waste inside of us that now can't get out and has nowhere to go. So instead of removing the bins, just empty them. And so that's a really important thing that we need to remember. As far as the lymphatics, we have to keep our lymphatics moving. We have to make sure that it's emptying out, and we have to make sure we're keeping them clean. So drink lots and lots of water. We can do things like dry brushing, rebounding. Rebounding is basically like a little mini trampoline. I have one in my field, and every morning I'll rebound on that. Now, even if you don't have a rebounder, you can just do this. You can just lift your heels up, and you can do this, and that is enough to open up the little ports everywhere to get things moving. And so what I do every morning as well, and this is another thing that hopefully you can implement into your lives, and it's really, really easy. It's just something I do every morning while I'm on my rebounder. And you have to do it in a certain order because the way the lymphatic system works in your body. But basically you'll start here, and you're just going to do this for a minute, and then you do the other side for a minute, and then you do under here for a minute, and then I do each armpit. And you're just taking your fingers like this, and you're pumping these ports. These are the big ones. These are your big industrial bins. So you're just pumping that for a minute, then the other one, and then here, which is just above your belly button, you're just pumping there, and then your groin, you want to go downwards like that, and then backs of your knees, just pump the backs of your knees, all for a minute. Really, really easy to do that. And that will keep things moving. on top of dry brushing, which I can speak to you more in detail about dry brushing, tell you exactly how to do it if you're interested in that. And another thing you can do also, if you have the ability to have access to this, is inversions, is going upside down. I have a yoga swing, which I get on every morning, and I hang upside down for a few minutes. And it really helps kind of drain everything down. You know, it helps move everything around. So that's something else that's really, really important. Now, the next foundational building block is food. We all have to eat. And we all have to make a choice about what we put in our bodies. And really, when it comes down to food, process elimination is first and foremost the most important thing for me. We have to stop putting things in that are making us sick. We have to stop what made us sick in the first place. We have to, we really, really have to think about these things. Now, the body is striving all the time for homeostasis, which means balance. It's constantly striving for balance. Your body is never against you. Your body wants you to live. Your body is in survival mode all the time. And so it's permanently striving for that homeostasis and that balance so that it can be healthy. And so our bodies can process out absolutely everything. And I mean everything. Like even poisons, our body can process out everything. But if we put it in quicker than we can get it out, that's when we're in trouble. So, if we put in cyanide quicker than our body can get it out and in larger amounts, it's going to kill us. It's the same with water. If we put too much water in quicker than we can process, food, air, we hyperventilate if we put too much air in. So everything is about moderation and understanding exactly how much our bodies can process out and honouring that as well. So the first thing that I would say needs to stop immediately, and this is a hard one, even for me, because it's the most addictive chemical known to man, is refined sugar. Sugar feeds cancer quicker than anything else. It's cancer's favourite form of energy, and without sugar, cancer cannot proliferate. And so it's really, really important. And now our bodies do need sugar. Again, we do need these things. We need sugar, but we do not need it in the amount that we can get it in a can of Coke or a Debbie donut or something like that. So refined sugars, the only place you should be getting sugar from is fruit. I do my best to do this. I had a Dairy Queen last night, so I'm not innocent. I do have my moments. But we have to really be very, very aware of these things and conscious. And also what I would say is, if you are going to do things that probably aren't that good for you, do 10 other things that that are really good for you. Like offset it, because our bodies every day are on this sliding scale of balance towards homeostasis or disease. And disease is the opposite of homeostasis. So if you imagine you're on a sliding scale and you go, okay, homeostasis, disease, and you're like, oh, I'm going to have a Dairy Queen. Oh, but then I'm going to drink loads of really good water and exercise and, go to sleep tonight and all these things. So you can constantly bring your body, but we want to kind of try and keep it towards homeostasis as much as possible. So refined sugars, please try and even if you can't get them gone, just be a lot more aware of what you're eating, because there are sugars in everything, every single processed food out there. They literally put it in toothpaste. The irony, they put it in everything. And so we have to be very careful. And it's also hidden under other names like fructose glucose syrup and high corn fructose stuff and other things. And honestly, please don't fall into the trap of thinking, oh, I'll have artificial sweeteners, because they are just as bad. They are a derivative of rat poison. So they are no better. Just get them gone. And if you have to have sugary things, like maple syrup or agave syrup, things like that are a little bit better. Hey, little man. So the next thing I would say is pasteurized dairy. Raw dairy is a very different kettle of fish, because the nutrients can be absorbed a lot better, because the pasteurization process actually kills most goodness in dairy. And then it's a wonder why we can't stomach it and we can't, tolerate it. So as I say, raw dairy is very, very different, but pasteurized dairy really should be avoided. There is casein in there and there's IGF-1 hormone, which are both active cancer feeders. So they're both pushing the body into homeostasis. And cow's dairy takes about 8 hours for us to digest, and it's incredibly acidic. It's very, very acid forming, and it's mucus forming. So that 8 hours that it's in your body turning into cheese and you're trying to process it out, that's 8 hours of acidity going into your body and increasing your acidity levels. Now, cancer thrives in an acidic environment. It does not like an alkaline environment. So the least amount of acidity that we can cause in our bodies, the better we're going to be. Meat would be the next one. Now, I was vegan for 6.5 years, and I was vegetarian for 4 years before that. I would never do that to myself ever again, ever. One of the worst things I could have done. Veganism almost killed me, and I became very, very malnourished. And so I used to tell people, avoid meat, don't have the meat at all. Meat's going to give you cancer and all these things. Until I learned better. Actually, it's not necessarily the meat itself, it's the quality. And I will say it's like this with any food that you're going to put into your body. The quality is absolutely imperative. You want no growth hormones. And I'm talking to people who I know are like really looking at, growing their own food and rearing their own animals. So you all know, no growth hormones, no antibiotics. Like we don't want to be, and what we're feeding our animals as well. Like if you're feeding your animals junk, your animal's going to feed you junk. So you have to make sure that what you're feeding them is really, really good too. So it's all about the quality, and it's about honoring your own metabolism as well. Like my husband, for instance, he can eat something and the next day it's done. My metabolism is a little bit slower, so it's about honoring our own unique bodies as well. Like I know that I can eat a certain amount of food and certain things, and that I can process out at a certain speed. So the next thing, which I think is fairly obvious, is like processed foods, alcohol, all those kinds of things that we know we shouldn't be having. Again, it's really hard a lot of the time to cut them out completely, but just be aware. Bringing awareness to what you're eating and bringing awareness to what you're doing is the first step, because then you become aware, and then it's not habitual. It's not habit. It's not just like, oh, this is what I've done ever since. This is what my mum did. This is what I've done my whole life. It's like, no, actually, we have to become aware of what we're doing and our programming and our conditioning. Seed oils is another thing as well, to completely get out. I mean, I would say go and throw those out. There's no need to be using seed oils. You can use grass-fed butter, avocado oil, or MCT oil, which is refractionated coconut oil, things like that. We don't want to be going anywhere. Seed oils were originally engine lubricant, and they managed to mass market seed oils and engine lubricant and get us to eat it. And they wonder why we're sick and fatter than ever when we used to eat a lot of butter and raw milk and these kinds of things. They're bad, they tell us, and they fed us seed oils and margarine, which is like one molecule away from plastic, and nut milk, which is just horrendous. So what we really want to be doing is we want to be getting back to whole foods with the minimal amount of ingredients. That's really it. If you can't pronounce something on there, don't eat it. Like if you don't recognize the ingredient, your body's not going to recognize it either. And it's going to have a real hard time of processing that out. And a lot of these foods and chemicals actually stay in our bodies for a very, very long time and get deep into our cells, and we can't get them out. So it's really, really important that we're not overloading our body. So quality matters, absolutely. Okay, so the last one. I don't even know how long I'm up here. I'm just going to keep going. So the last one is water. Now, water is the most imperative next to breath. We can live without food for quite some time, but we can't live without water for very long. And it's really, really important that we understand that this is a gift that God gave us. However, it's been poisoned, as with our food, as with our breath, as with it's been poisoned. So it's another thing that we have to make a very conscious decision about how we're going to get the best water that we can get, where we're going to get it from. We're going to make sure that it's not hurting us. We are 75% water. We are mainly water. Our brain is something like 83% water. Our lungs are like 76% water. Like we are mainly water. We are water beings, and we need water in order to keep us from being dehydrated, because dehydration is a really, really serious issue. It only takes something like 5% of dehydration to start changing your cognitive abilities and things like that. It will literally shrink your brain. Like Alzheimer's can be heavily linked to dehydration because of the shrinking of the brain. And so dehydration leads to DNA damage, which can lead to mutations, which is cancer eventually. Dehydration triggers a catabolic state accompanied by muscle wastage, accelerated aging, and cell hypoxia. Now, cell hypoxia basically means there's not enough oxygen in your cells. Now, I won't go too deep into this because I mean I can, but I won't, just for time's sake. But one of the main reasons that cancer develops in the first place is there's not enough oxygen in the cells, because our bodies naturally, this is why we need sugar, is because our bodies, through the first stage of replication of our cells, will use sugar as the energy. So it's using sugar, we're burning it up, we're able to then, our cells split, they divide, that's how cells go on. However, the next stage of replication, they don't use sugar anymore and they start using oxygen. Now, if there isn't enough oxygen on a cellular level, we'll die. because our cells need to replicate. The skin on the back of my hand is not the same skin I was born with, right? And we need to replicate our cells. If we can't, we'll get sick and we'll die. So if there's not enough oxygen on a cellular level, the body goes, okay, hang on a minute, we need to go back to plan A, which is sugar. So it goes back to burning sugar, and it starts burning up sugar at a rapid rate. It ferments the sugar, and from fermenting the sugar, it can then create enough oxygen so it can replicate. But of course, they're mutated cells. We're not meant to be doing that. And so, the body, that then develops cancer. And that's why cancer cells eat sugar so quickly, because they are cells that didn't have enough oxygen to do what they were meant to do, and they had to go back to burning up sugar. And so then mutated cells. And so we don't want those cells. But our body is trying to keep us alive. Again, it's striving for homeostasis. It's trying to keep us alive at all costs. We give our cells the environment, and our cells do whatever they can do with that environment. And so not having enough oxygen is one of the leading causes of cancer in our cells. So dehydration is causing cell hypoxia. So this is how dehydration directly links to cancer. Dehydration also leads to diminished urine output, causing acid waste to accumulate in weak and vulnerable areas. Again, it's the toxic. If we can't get it out, it's going to stay in the body. And if we can't get it out, it's going to circulate and it's going to sit in some other organ, and then it's going to cause you sickness somewhere else. So dehydration also causes all bodily functions to be less efficient, including the use of oxygen at a cellular level and the removal of toxins. So 11 years ago, when my son was really, really sick, he was in between his second and third bone marrow transplant, I was introduced to a guy who had saved his own son's life using lots of other different things. He didn't use cannabis, but he used wheatgrass and mushrooms, and he was using water, and he was using lots of other different things. And I went to his home. Somebody introduced me to him and said, you need to speak to this guy. And his name was Kevin. So I went down to Kevin's house, and Kevin was a multimillionaire, and he lived in this massive mansion, which was really lovely. And he had a number of businesses, and what he'd actually done is he took 3 of his staff members off of his business and said, when his son was diagnosed with a very, very severe brain tumor, and he said, I want you to go and research how they treat cancer in all of these other different countries and come back and tell me what to do. And that's what he did. So everything that they came back with, he implemented all of that. He had EMF protections everywhere. It was crazy when I went to his house. I thought I was paranoid. And I got there and I learned a lot from this guy. There wasn't one stone that he left unturned. But when I got there, he showed me, took me down into his basement, and he showed me these massive distillers that he had at his windows. And he was telling me about the water that he gave his son. And I said, okay, well, so the distilled water. And he said, no, don't ever drink distilled water. It's dead. It's devoid of minerals. It will take everything out of your teeth and your bones. Like, do not drink distilled water. It's toxic. Don't do that. It causes oxidative stress, which is basically cellular breakdown. Lots of other things cause oxidative stress as well, things like cigarettes and alcohol and bad foods and all these other things. It's breaking down our cells. And so distilled water causes that problem. And then he also told me that reverse osmosis water is the same. He explained to me that tap water is full of neurotoxins and carcinogens. So like, oh my God, well, what can I drink? What can I give him? And bottled water is no better. And bottled water is actually full of microplastics now, and it's full of BPAs. And I don't know if you know this, but your average plastic bottle of water has been sat on that shelf. It's how long? 5 years. See, I was going to say 3. So yeah, it's actually been in that bottle for an average of 3 to 5 years before it even gets on the shelf. Now, where has that bottle been in those 3 to 5 years? God knows. It's been in a warehouse. It's been out in the sun. When I turn up to a petrol station and I see the crates and crates of bottles of water outside in the sun, I'm just like, oh, good Lord, like, nobody drink that. It just shouldn't exist, because that's horrendous. The heat and the transfer of those plastic chemicals going into that water, there's direct links between bottled water and breast cancer because of the chemicals. And so, I was left then going, well, what can I drink? What can I give my son? And so he showed me, he took his distilled water and he put it through another machine and it did something to it. He put it through another machine and it microclustered it. He did it for another machine, and he had all these contraptions that cost him in excess of £60,000, which I think is about $50,000. And I was just like, well, I don't have the ability to do all this. And he said, well, you can always come and get it from me. And I was like, well, it's a 6-hour round trip. Like, I can't do that. And I naively thought that there was no way to get this kind of water ever again, until 2.5 years ago, and I found the machine that I brought with us. So I really want everybody to, like, you are more than welcome. We bought the machine so you can all enjoy the water that I drink now, and the machine that I bought my son as well, because it's really important, again, to stop putting toxins in, and the toxins that are in there, we can get them out. So nature intended us to be drinking living water. Okay, nature did not intend us to be putting water into big holding tanks and sitting it there for days and days and weeks and years on end. That water sits there and the hydrogen becomes very attracted to itself, and then it turns into big macro clusters, and our bodies just can't absorb it. And so what we need to do is we need to drink living water, and nature knows best. So you're looking for natural spring water that's been over rocks and been broken up and been moved around, and it's living, it's moving, it's not dead, it's not just sitting there. So that's what you're looking at. It is very difficult to get hold of nowadays as well, because the natural spring water has the runoff from the fields. What are they spraying on the fields? Like, we can't control that either. So what is actually in our natural spring water? We have no idea. And the bottled natural spring water that you're buying from the shop, it's no better than any other bottled water. It's just that it just costs more, and you think you're doing a good thing. And unfortunately, it's another way that they've completely conned you. So there are actually 7 places in the world where you can find something called naturally reduced water. Now, Lourdes in France is one of them, and Nordenham in Germany is another one of these places, and there's another 5, but I can't remember them because they've all got really long, weird names because they're in other countries. There's some in Mexico, there's some in Japan, and basically, naturally reduced water is molecular hydrogen rich, it's antioxidant, it's microclustered, it's alkalized, which means it's mineral rich, and it's living and it's structured. And it's best for our bodies to absorb. It really is the best way for our bodies to absorb it. Now, unfortunately, we don't live anywhere near one of these 7 places. So when I found this machine and I realized and I learned that it actually mimics that, it's a technological answer. Tech always has an answer. And 50 years ago in Japan, a company called Enagic decided that they were going to develop this hydrogen technology and create this hydrogen water. Basically, they looked at these 7 places and said, how is everyone living so long? Because a lot of these places are in blue zones, and so everyone's living to like way past 100, and they're like, how is that happening? And they looked at the water source. They looked at what people were drinking, and they went, oh, we can mimic that. We can definitely take that into our life. We can mimic that. And they did, and they've been doing it for 50 years, and they've done a very, very good job of it. It's actually a medically graded device as well, so it's not just... it's been medically graded in Japan, which is one of the hardest places in the world to get anything medically graded. They have to jump through so many hoops. It took them 12 years to actually get it medically graded. So it's one of the best on the market. And I don't mess around when it comes to water or my health, and I don't mess around when it comes to my kid, which is why I just bought him one as well to help him, really flush everything out. So Kangen, which is what my machine is called, actually means return to origin, because they are trying to get back to the original as humanly possible. And so I'm just going to go through a little bit of what the water does, so that when you go and drink it, you can understand something about it, and you can understand how it's healing you and why it's not hurting you anymore, and actually what it's bringing to you. So hydrogen rich. Molecular hydrogen is the most potent antioxidant known to man. It's also the smallest, so it can get into every cell. It can get in. It's also a selective antioxidant, so it doesn't go for those free radicals in our bodies that we need, because again, we do need free radicals in our bodies. We don't need the damaging ones. We don't need the ones that are bumping around trying to find an extra electron. And I can talk really sciencey, but I don't want to go too sciencey for people, especially not this early on a Friday morning. But basically, it's selective. So it's only going for the really harmful hydroxyl ions. And what it does is it donates an electron to the hydroxyl ions, and then it turns it into water, and you wee it out. So it's a really easy way to get those damaging free radicals and just get them out of your body. It also reverses oxidative stress, because it's negatively charged, so it's donating these electrons, so it's reversing the damage that a lot of things are happening. Again, all the things that we can't control, we can't control the skies and these things, but one of these, drinking this water is one of the ways that we can really bring that sliding scale back into homeostasis, because we have to drink water every day. We have to. We're made out of water, so it's most important that we are drinking water that's not hurting us and it's actually healing us. Because it's with the Dairy Queen I had last night, I made sure I drank a litre of Kangen water, and I was like, okay, I think I've offset it. I think I've done enough. So 1 glass of that water is actually the antioxidant equivalent of 94 bananas or 1 kilo of blueberries. Now, I don't know about you, but I can't eat 1 kilo of blueberries 6, 7, 8 times a day. I can't do that, but I can drink that water. Now, also the microclustering that I'd like to talk about. So basically, if we imagine that water, as I said earlier, the hydrogen becomes attracted to itself, so the water becomes very macroclustered. Now, those macroclusters can't physically get into your cells because the aquaporin, the little door on your cell, is tiddly tiny. And so the water basically just goes by and it really can't get in. And so if it's not getting in, it's also not taking the minerals in, and it's also not taking the oxygen in, and it's not taking the hydrogen in. So imagine microclustered water. It's effectively like taking a bunch of tennis balls and throwing them at a chain link fence. Like hardly any going to get in. We run the water through that machine, and what it does is it splits everything apart. It splits the hydrogen apart as it goes over the electrodes. And it's splitting it apart. So now it's like taking a bunch of marbles or a bunch of golf balls and throwing them at a chain link fence. Much more we're going to get through because it's much tinier. It's really, really small. So it can get in, and when it's going in, it actually hydrates 6 times more effectively and efficiently than normal water. It can actually get into the cell immediately. So a lot of the time when people drink fresh Kangen water, they'll go, oh, usually I get like really sluggish and I can feel it. And it's like, it doesn't happen because it's immediately getting into the cells, and it's taking all those minerals with it, and it's taking the oxygen and the hydrogen and everything into the cell, actually into the cell, so it can flush out the toxins that are in there, which normal water just cannot do. Also, it's negatively charged. So I'm going to be a little bit sciencey here, but I speak about our aquaporin, which is the tiny little channel in our cells. Now, that aquaporin needs the water to be negatively charged because the aquaporin is positively charged. And we all know that negative and negative will will repel away from each other. So the aquaporin being positively charged, it needs negatively charged water to actually even get it into the cell, which is fine if you're drinking positively charged water, which your tap water, your or whatever water is positively charged. We have a meter with us as well called an ORP meter, which is oxidation reduction potential. And basically that's showing you the electrical charge of the water. And we will be able to show you with the little thing that he has that normal water is going to be a plus number, which means it's oxidative, it's positively charged. Kangen water is negatively charged, it's a negative number. So it's because it's negatively charged, our positively charged aquaporin is able to straight away, it's just attracted to itself, and it goes in, and it goes in really, really quickly, which is why when you drink the water, you can feel it go into your cells immediately. Now, what happens is if your water is positively charged, that's fine. Your body will still absorb it slowly, but your body will have to donate electrons to it. And now if your body's having to donate electrons to the water just so you can absorb it, it's taking away those electrons where it's needed most, which is to fight free radicals. So I hope that wasn't too sciencey for people. When I first learned that, I was like, my mind was blown. But it's we can talk about, and we're going to be over there as well. So anybody who wants to come and talk in more detail and ask a lot more questions, you are more than welcome. I can talk, and I don't mind doing it. So also it's alkalized. Now alkaline, you see a lot of alkaline water on the shelves as well. Now what's happened is they've taken normal water and they've added bicarbonate of soda to it. That's all they've done. And then they've put it in a bottle and they've charged you 3 times more. And again, you think you're doing something good. Whereas actually, that baking soda and other things that you add to that water can actually build up in the liver and actually cause alkaliosis, which is the opposite of acidosis, which is as equally as damaging. And we don't want that either. And so, again, it's another complete con. They were like, oh, God, people are learning about alkaline water. Oh, we best jump on that bandwagon. And then people, pay lots and lots of money for this essential water, and it's absolutely horrible stuff. So it's alkalized, and it's alkalized. We don't alkalize it using any chemicals. There's no chemicals that are in that machine. It's purely electrolysis. It's just electricity. And so it's alkalized, and we can change the mineral content of the water using electricity. It's really, really crazy stuff. So we can change the pH. Now we're not, when a lot of people talk about living with an alkaline body, we need to get the body alkaline because cancer doesn't like it. We can't have a completely alkaline body. That's impossible. Our stomach acid, for instance, does not need to be alkaline. Otherwise, we can't digest our food. We're looking at alkalining our blood. We're looking at making sure that our blood stays alkaline. And that's really what we're going for. And so by drinking alkalized water using electrolysis, it's going into the body and it's balancing things out where it needs to be balancing things out. So we can also change the pH, and we can go from 2.5 to 11.5. Now, this is where it becomes really, really important. Another reason why I bought this machine for myself. And again, we've bought some little bottles as well. So anybody that wants to try this for yourself, like, please come and let us know, because I'd love to send you home with some of the other pHs that we have. So 2.5 pH basically is hypochlorous acid. Now, we create hypochlorous acid in our white cells, in our immune system. If you get a cut or a bump or something like that, your immune system goes into, it goes into overdrive, and it sends hypochlorous acid to disinfect it and to stop the bleeding and to make sure that there's no infection happening. So we can actually create 2.5 just using electricity, using that machine. So it's 400 times more powerful than bleach, but it's non-toxic. So I literally use it as a mouthwash. I can spray it in my eye. It won't hurt me. I spray it on my skin. It's an amazing wound healer. It speeds up healing like tenfold. So there was a French chemist during the First World War who developed 2.5 hypochlorous acid in a lab. And what he did is they did an experiment. They were pulling soldiers off the field. And obviously, trenches, man, some of the wounds they were experiencing. And half the soldiers were treated with 2.5 hypochlorous acid and half weren't. And the ones that were had a 100% recovery rate over the ones that weren't. Because hypochlorous acid, again, our own immune system creates it, but we're able to make it en masse and use it as a wound cleaner, a wound healer, a mouthwash, a disinfectant. In fact, 1 in 3 Japanese hospitals has a Kanga machine, and they use the 2.5 to sterilize their operating equipment. So it's pretty potent and powerful stuff, and it's non-toxic. Again, you can just spray it in your mouth. So if your kid gets into a bottle of 2.5, it doesn't matter. Your kid gets into a bottle of bleach, you're going to worry. But this is completely non-toxic. And again, going right back to the beginning, I said, and the way to get optimal health is we have to stop putting the toxins in, and the toxins that are in there, we've got to get them out. And so one way to replace 95% of the cleaning chemicals that I have in my home, I have a Kanga machine. So I literally use the 2.5 for cleaning and sterilizing and all that kind of stuff. And it goes all the way up to 11.5. Now, 11.5 is an emulsifier, which is really interesting because you can actually mix oil and water together. And so I use the 11.5 to wash my clothes. I take a gallon of 11.5, I put a couple of little drops of essential oil in there, put it in the washing machine, and it lifts all the oil and oil-based and fatty like stains and all that kind of stuff. So again, it's another way to completely get rid of those kind of cleaning chemicals, because every single thing that goes in, on, and around your body is either feeding or fighting disease. It's pushing you one way or the other up that sliding scale. And we have to be very aware of those kinds of things. And the smelly, if you go into the supermarket and you buy your detergent based on the smell, and you're like, oh, I want my clothes to smell really, really good forever, like those smelly chemicals are so bad for you. They are endocrine disruptors. They're messing around with your bodies. They're messing around on a cellular level. And, they're lovely. And Glade plugins, Yankee candles. I mean, my Kanga machine can't replace Glade plugins or Yankee candles, but I just don't have those kinds of things. But more that we can smell. Sometimes I'll walk. I mean, I was in Walmart the other day. I had to go in for something, and I walked past the candles, and oh my God, just the smell of all those candles on that shelf, and I could smell it, and I was like, my God, people have homes that smell like this, and I understand why you want to, but please don't. It's honestly, I'd rather like bake some cookies or something, because that, the more you can smell these things, the worse it is. So everything in between 2.5 and 11.5 and everything in between, we can make all the different pHs for all different things around your home and stuff like that as well. So I've brought a load of spray bottles. So if anybody wants to fill up with a 2.5, because while your kids are running around, if they do fall over, have a scrape, spray it on their knee, spray it on wherever they've hurt themselves. And it's a completely non-toxic way to do that. And I'm more than happy to share that all with you as well. So, okay, so what I was going to say, yeah. So I recently bought one for Darren because, again, I wanted him to get the toxins out. He's been poisoned. They poisoned him for 4.5 years. And one of the reasons why I do what I do is because the system tried to kill my kid. And ever since that moment, I have vowed to, A, try and take the pharmaceutical industry down, which I don't think I'm going to be able to do that, but the best way that I can do that is to help people not need them. And I can help people, I can keep people out of their pockets, at least. I can try and do that. And that's my mission in this life, is to help people stay away from those, from the evil company that is pharmaceutical industry, because they don't care about you. And, you know, we've had this conversation before. They don't care. They're not going to do anything in your best interest. You have to do this for yourself. You have to. Again, stopping toxins going in. Toxins, we've got to get them out. And for disease prevention and treatment, I honestly haven't been like this excited about anything since I discovered cannabis. And obviously cannabis saved my kid's life. But when I found that machine 2.5 years ago, man, I just, you know, so I'm really holding myself back as not talking about it for too long, because I can get really overexcited about it. But I just make sure you come over and like share the water with us. So there is actually a last one. I know I said there's only 4, but there's a bonus foundational building block of life, and I think that's faith. It's not one that I used to think about a lot, but since my son was really, really sick, it's definitely one that I have a lot more faith in what I do and everything. And the antidote to anxiety, you know, if you suffer from anxiety or this kind of feeling of like not being in control and things like that, and you want things to go the way that you need them to go, and it can get all, I mean, I'm feeling that right now, living in a field and the lumber turned up, and I'm like, oh my God, this like winter's coming, as Tag keeps telling me, winter's coming. I'm like, I know, like, we're getting there. Now, the antidote to that anxiety is faith. It's just faith. Have the faith that everything's going to work out as it should do. Have the faith that you're going to be okay. Have the faith that it will all go to plan. Faith is the antidote to all of that. And positive mental attitude. It's really, really, really important that no matter what you're going through in your life, you try and have a positive mental attitude. Because, you know, without being a bit blasé, but it could be worse. It could be a lot worse. Like wherever you go, it could be a lot worse. And having a positive mental attitude can change what's happening to you if you talk about quantum physics, but it will most definitely change your experience of what is happening in your life right now. If you can just try and find something to be grateful for, no matter what is going on, get up in the morning and list 3 things that I'm grateful for and say thank you, and just feel that feeling of gratitude. It raises your vibration, it takes your frequency up, and it keeps you in a much more elevated place, and it stops you feeling so horrible about things, you know. So it can definitely change your experience of what's going on in your life. So I think I'm coming to the end. Get all these solid, and everything you do on top is going to have more chance of working as effectively as possible. You know, if we can just bring awareness to these things and just try and do the best that we can. And anything that we do on top of that, cannabis or supplementation or anything like that, is just going to have a much, much easier time of working. Because cannabis will work way better if you aren't poisoning yourself with one hand or you're trying to heal yourself with the other hand. You know, we really do have to give ourselves the best chance that we can, and any plant medicine we're using, we have to give that the best chance that we can too. So, thank you very much. I really appreciate you listening and turning up. And I do have just one more thing to say, which is I just want to say thank you for welcoming me and my husband to your community. And Tag's looking at me, but I've got some things here that I'm going to mention Tag, because Tag's pivotal is why we're here. It was not very long ago I was stood with Tag, and me and Tag have had a lot of very deep conversations. He's seen a very different side of me than a lot of people. And I didn't feel worthy to kind of be as loved as I am by the community here. I couldn't understand. I was like, I don't understand why everybody is so welcoming and this, that, and the other, and I don't feel like I deserve it. And he looked at me and he said, what about if this is your reward? What about if this is your reward for everything you've done for the last 10 years? For helping as many people as you have? What if this is your reward? I was like, okay, I'll take it. Absolutely. And it's made me look at things very, very differently. I now feel absolutely worthy of it, because I have spent the last 10 years like just trying to help people not go down the same road that my son went down, because it's horrendous and I wouldn't wish it on anybody. And so anything I can do to try and help people prevent that, I will. And you know, I made a deal with God 10 years ago that if he was to let my son to live, then I would spend every day of the rest of my life helping people. And I've done that. And it seems very apt that this would be my reward. So thank you so very much. And Tag said another thing, which was, and this is the last thing I'm going to leave, and the reason why I'm here and why we sold everything and came and moved here was the day before we left to go to South Dakota after the last event. I was sat talking to him, and I said, you know, we're looking, you know, we want to buy land, we don't really know where. And he said, listen, He said, wherever you go, please just make sure you have community because you can't do this on your own. And he was absolutely right, and I wouldn't even want to. So thank you very much for having me. I don't know if anyone has any questions.
Yep. Any questions?
Terry has his hand up. With the machine that we have, about 3 days. Because then the hydrogen becomes very attracted to itself, so eventually it comes, so it's about 3 days. The... Yeah, actually that rings a bell. I think that guy might have had that. I think... Wow, that's more expensive than my machine. By a long shot. Yeah, nice. Oh, we'll definitely talk about that. I'm interested for sure. Thank you, Terry. Yes, Julie.
You talked about your rebound
Mm-hmm.
and movement. Is there something about the rebound that drains your lymphatic system before, or is that just how you like to exercise? Will any kind of exercise do the same thing?
So the rebound, and the reason why that works so well is because this motion, actually we have like little doors. You know, I like to use a lot of little analogies. I'm not very kind of medically. I don't talk medical jargon a lot. But we have like these little doors, and when we do this, it opens them. It just opens them. So running, walking. I mean, yeah, any kind of exercise, any movement is going to do it. But it just seems to be that motion just kind of accelerates it somewhat. So yeah, you can get like little rebounders on Amazon for. I had one that was like $60 and it didn't last very long, so I just bought another one for about $110. You can get one with metal springs. I don't recommend those ones because they're loud and they break. But you can get ones with bungees. Bungee ones, I think, are better. Anybody else have anything else they'd like to say?
Callie, I got a question.
Oh, hey, Tag.
How are you?
I'm good. I feel better now.
Hey, we've had a Kangen machine at our house for a little while, and Callie and I have had some conversation. I don't know if you've taken this any further. Can we change the pH in the water to a level that would work as weed killer?
Yes, we can. And we actually have a book over on there called Kangen Water for Homesteaders. And so there's a lot of information in there. We can change it, and there's like 2.5 you can use for chicken mites and things like this. And so, yeah, we actually have a homesteading book over there. So if you want to come have a look and see exactly all the different pHs, and plants prefer different pHs as well. So, you know, different plants like are more acidic, different plants like a bit more alkaline and things like that. So we can change the water to give our plants exactly what they're going to need. And plants are the same as us. They have an aquapore, and they need to like absorb the water as well, and they need all the same things we do. And so, yeah, it can work really, really well if you're a homesteader as well for like animals and all that kind of stuff too. So, yeah, thank you, Tag. Forgot about that. Say it. I think that's it.
Any other questions? We have a mic now. People can hear you.
No, you're stuck with me now. That's it. I'm here. I'm never leaving. I love you more. Thank you very much.
All right.
Thanks, Callie.
All right, everybody. The next class. Oh, yeah, we do have one thing.
Oh my God, now I have to think of a question. Okay, who can answer this question? What is the body always striving for? Who said that first?
Oh, God.
Is it this lady here? I heard that one shout out first over here. I think it's you. There you go, my lovely. You are welcome. I am definitely going now.
All right, everybody, the next event's going to take place after lunch at 1 o'clock. Make sure you're checking up at the pavilion where all the schedules are to know when the children's events are taking place and all the special events towards the evening, both today and tomorrow. For those who did not hear originally this morning, if you have not gotten a wrist bracelet, please go see Michael at the Preparedness Radio booth. You don't have to wear it, but it's how we keep track of how many people attend the event. So please go pick up your bracelet at the front. Thank you for coming. Nope, I still have one knife left. It's a $70 knife. Yeah, follow me.
Yeah, that's what I was supposed to do when we were getting ready and stuff like that. Yeah, I could do that. something they can go away with in the supermarket. Do I need this? No, you know. Yeah, yeah, that's, we do most of it. You see Jesse do this. He makes me.
Oh, it's
Yeah. Oh, I'm sweating like a pig. Hey, Jasper! Jasper!
Hi, here, Cal.
I know, I'm just honestly.
I know. You're in front of people and stuff. Actually, this cat is very cool.
Good to see ya.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, my friend has one of those in, New Hampshire.
I took pictures of the
Yeah.
stuff you had up there.
Yeah.
You don't like that? I'm going to take, I mean, we'll have this, but you're going to take glance at it. But then they'll get the name to the wheel. So, like I said, pictures of it.
Yeah, my friend has one in her, she has like a healing room.
Right.
She has one and she uses that alongside my candy machine. So, I didn't know that.
It's like, you don't want somebody there. So I think it's
Wow.